Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Z, guess what time it is?
Time for a new segment.
That's right. It's new topic time, everybody. And the topic is, drumroll,
Self-care secrets.
self-care secrets. Man, I've been wanting to roll this one out for a while now.
Yeah, we both have, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So let's give them a little lowdown here as to why the new segment.
Yeah, I think, self-care has been something that we have been thinking about and living with for quite some time. For me, I had some health issues back in 2015. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I
Yep.
was still a bit overweight at that time. And I think the health scare is really what got me to thinking about, what is most important to me.
Yeah.
And health was number one. As a doctor,
Right.
as a doctor, I wasn't paying attention to my health and I was just eating whatever. By that time I used to work in a hospital.
Yeah.
And I would sit for long periods of time. And I developed a herniated disc and I had to have back surgery. And then when I switched to forensics, I wasn't sitting as much because I was doing the autopsy. So I was standing.
Yeah.
But I still was just not really paying that much attention to my diet, my nutrition.
Yeah.
And so that was a real wake up call for me. And really, that's what started me on the journey of life coaching and weight loss and really starting to pay attention to what was happening, not just on the outside of me, but on the inside.
Yeah. I remember you started looking at your BMI, your body
Mass index.
Body mass index.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, it's creeping up. And
yeah, I mean, and it's funny because those of you that have met me in person, I'm tall.
Right,
I'm about
right.
6'1",
Yeah.
6'1.5".
Yeah.
Or 6'1.5". And so I carried my weight well. Many people figured I was just normal sized. But the interesting thing that happened is where I worked for the county, every year we would have these health assessments, and they would actually do fasting blood levels for cholesterol and for sugar. And so I noticed that my fasting blood sugar was going up. When I first remembered paying attention, it was like in the 70s.
So that's a biggie, right?
Yeah, in the 70s, it was pretty normal. And then like a couple of years later, it was in the 80s. And then a couple of years later, it was in the 90s. And so I was never diagnosed as pre-diabetic, but definitely the numbers were going up.
Trending in the wrong direction, as we like to say.
The trend is your friend.
Yeah.
And so, I picked that up right away.
Yeah. For me, it was 01, testicular cancer. 07, pancreatic tumor. Anybody know anybody that survived a pancreatic tumor? For whatever reason, I did. I think a lot of it was the first scare, the first wake-up call. Got me thinking more about a better diet and some things, and reading just got in a mindset. Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. I read that book, and that was the first book. I'm a book guy, in case you guys didn't know. That was the first book that I really read that got me on that path.
And I want to say too, a lot of times pancreatic tumors don't have any symptoms, or
Right.
maybe someone may develop jaundice, which is yellowing of the skin. But you had back pain, right? I think
I had some discomfort on my right side.
Yeah. And so that actually even is a component of self-care, is physical sensations, being aware of your physical sensations.
Yeah, I thought
good for you.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was stones or something.
Yeah, gallstones. Yep.
Just figured, it's nothing major. It turned out to be something totally major, but incredibly, I survived that. They were shocked.
Surgery. You had a big surgery.
Yeah, 13-hour surgery. For every hour I was in the hospital For every 1 hour equaled 1 day.
Yeah. Get a Whipple. Whipple.
Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 13 days, and incredibly, they sent it off to the Mayo Clinic. It
Well, down the
came
line.
back, and they said, we don't know what it was. All we know is it wasn't cancerous. You just won the lottery.
Well, thank God.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And from there, last year, I had more issues, open heart surgery,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
valve repair.
The valve repair and a dilated aortic root, which it's interesting because he had a dilated aorta,
What is
right?
that for us lay people?
So the aorta is the main blood vessel off your heart that basically takes the blood to the rest of your body. Now
Mhm.
that is hereditary, right? And you had other people in your family that have had the dilated
Yeah, so that
aorta.
was what, an aneurysm of an
Aneurysm.
artery.
Yeah, yeah. And it can be in the abdomen, but unfortunately his was in the chest because the aorta travels off right off the heart in your chest and goes down into your abdomen. So if it's in the abdomen, it's a little bit of an easier surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big one.
And then the biggie, the nightmare, the mold toxicity. For those of you that don't, mold toxicity, what is that? Well, I bought a moldy house when I first started flipping houses. Unfortunately, it was a moldy house, and I lived in it for not very long, like 6 months. Unfortunately, it lowered my it really compromised my immune system. And from there, years later, we ended up buying a house that we thought was perfectly fine and had a mysterious mold problem. I got really sick,
Yeah.
almost went into a coma, and who knows what would have happened if that would have took place.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like a sensitivity, I think we're still not everybody isn't on the same page as far as mold sensitivity goes, but I think part of that is also because different people respond to mold differently, and then the symptoms are different, and then it's hard to really diagnose it.
Yeah, so all of these maladies got us on this road to what we do now, our passion, which is business and life coaching.
Yeah, yeah. And also for me, really got me to start to thinking about my work, how much time I'm spending at work and burnout.
Right.
Many physicians are struggling, still struggling with burnout and wanting to enjoy this incredible life. I mean, I have an incredible life and
Yeah.
I created an
Yeah.
incredible life, but
Yeah.
I really wasn't maximizing my level of satisfaction and fulfillment, right? I wanted to be more
Yeah.
fulfilled. And so that led me on this path to really starting to question what really does matter to me. And that's where we're still at. We still continue to ask that question of ourselves.
Yeah. So now we're primarily focused on bringing you guys this show. We've got all these segments for now. Eventually, hard to say. Maybe we'll laser focus in on one or two. Maybe the self care, which we're really passionate about. Maybe that just ends up being the primary. Maybe we keep going. We would love to hear from the viewers and the listeners. What do you think we should be doing here? What are your favorite episodes? What could you live without? What can you not live without?
Yeah. And what are your definitions of self care? I mean, self care is a fairly broad topic, and it manifests in many different avenues or venues. It could be physical, like we talked about the physical sensations,
Mm-hmm.
emotional, burnout, feeling tired, depressed, anxious, and then mentally,
Yeah.
mental health. That's really a big issue that we talk about. But even enjoying life or challenging oneself or intellectual pursuits,
Yeah.
that's still part of mental well-being
And spiritual.
and spiritual. Yeah, definitely. Do you have a faith practice, meditation, prayer? There's so many benefits to being part of a congregation. And also having people pray for you.
Yeah.
There's so much power in that, in really connecting in community,
Yeah.
in communication.
So these are the main topics. So let's just
Yeah.
kind of talk about them a little deeper physically. What we're talking about: balanced diet, regular exercise, sleep. Are
Yeah.
you getting restful sleep, everybody?
Exactly. And it's interesting with sleep because as a weight loss coach, sometimes lack of sleep can cause people to eat at night, when they normally their body should be sleeping instead of digesting food.
Yeah.
And also it can increase stress levels.
Gals and guys, that's one thing that I've been struggling with the mold toxicity is I can sleep. First off, one thing that comes with this irritable situation is frequent urination during the nighttime.
Mm.
Even now, when I have too much sugar, I find myself going to the bathroom about once every hour for like the first 3, 4 hours of the night. And then as the night goes on, it seems to be less frequently I'm going. But there's so many times that I wake up in the morning and I'm like, man, I don't feel like getting up because
Yeah. You've
I
been
don't feel like I've gotten a restful sleep. And part of it is that getting up frequently. And another problem with this issue is falling asleep to begin with.
Yeah. And Patrick is a diabetic. Unfortunately, with the Whipple procedure, he did have his pancreas removed, and the pancreas is the main organ that produces insulin. So now he has to take insulin. He has what's called type 3, like a type 3 diabetes. We
Yeah.
we hear about type 1 and type 2, but not so much about type 3, which is like a secondary
Yeah.
diabetes. So that's part of that too. Whenever he eats more sugar, he does tend to urinate because that's a symptom of diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because diabetes is silent, and a lot of people don't even know that they have it.
Right.
But frequent urination and thirst, that's also symptoms too. But yeah, so you mentioned about the physical. Another one is the emotional care, and that includes mindfulness, meditation, also therapy. We're both coaches,
Right.
and there is powerful synergy that occurs when you're working with a coach or a therapist, and really that allows you to feel comfortable tapping into those emotions, because many times we
Yeah.
avoid negative emotions. That's a lot of times why people may overeat or drink or do drugs, because they don't want to feel those negative emotions. But there is so much power in our emotions, and emotions are messages from our body.
Right.
And like you said, you got that message from your body. Something's not right here. I got a message from my body.
Yeah.
Just looking at those parameters. And I always encourage my clients to get on the scale every single day. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't want to do that. But again, that's how you recognize those trends.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm using a program right now working with, so I've taken it full throttle, full on here. I've got a doctor, integrative medicine doctor that I'm working with, a health coach. I'm using the Gupta program, which my Dr. Katie Bayless, she recommended. I'm using his program. There's a piece on mindfulness in there
Mm.
and tons of meditations. It's great for all sorts of different maladies. If you're sitting there wondering what to do, check it out. Google the Gupta program. Or what we can do is I'll leave the link in the show notes so that you can check it out. You have an opportunity to do a 28-day free trial. I didn't do the free trial. I just went and clicked, yeah, I'll have this.
You bought it.
I went ahead and bought it and jumped right into it because I just wanted to get going. But there's tons of really good meditations in there. There's all these different sections on how to, if you're dealing with anxiety, stress, burnout, all, all these different issues, what I'm going through, the chronic fatigue syndrome. There's a whole bunch that his program is designed to help you with.
And talking about the mental care here, which I hadn't even thought about this, but learning. engaging in mentally stimulating activities. And that's really what we're doing with the coaching.
Right.
And many times, as you're coaching another person, they are bringing up issues and topics that maybe you might not be that familiar with. And so it's learning, it's mutual learning, and helping each other communicate with each other and connect on that deeper level. And that's all part of
Yeah.
self-care.
Yeah. Exciting news. We're going to have somebody up and coming. One of our first Self-Care Secrets guests is a social worker who has some really good things that hopefully she'll share. The majority of them, I don't know what she can or cannot, because she is a social worker and I don't know what is confidential and all of that, but I'm sure she's going to have some great tips, tricks and ideas for you guys and gals moving forward. So can't wait to have her on the show.
Yeah, for sure. And then also social relationships. And that is so powerful because we are social creatures, and our relationships are so important to us, but they can also be a source of stress. And so really working on that, knowing who we are, and then that also helps us to understand and have compassion for others and their areas, maybe where they may struggle. So sometimes we have an area that we may not necessarily struggle in, but we have areas where we struggle. And so the more that we can share our vulnerabilities, it helps us to connect on those deeper levels.
And then once again, wrapping it up with spiritual care, prayer, meditation, things of that nature, the power of the mind, right? There's so much that we could be tapping into. Self-care is such a broad band. It's such a huge spectrum. And once again, feel free to message us and tell us some of your maladies so that we can make sure that we cover everything. Because I was thinking about internally, people don't even talk about, when I went for that heart surgery, they did a test and to check my veins, right, to see if there any plaque. Do you
arteries,
say arteries. I'm sorry, arteries, you guys. So they check the arteries and make sure that everything is not plugged up, and you don't have any issues on that regard. Who thinks about that?
Well, I tell you, because again, as a forensic pathologist doing autopsies, we will see people whose arteries have so much plaque and they had no symptoms, but their first symptom, unfortunately, was death. So that happens quite frequently.
Yeah. So what is the plaque? Tell that to our listeners. What is that like?
Plaque is cholesterol.
That like fat or it's cholesterol?
It's cholesterol, and over time, there's small hemorrhages, and then it heals, and then there's fibrosis, and there's scar tissue, and then they become calcified.
So what happens?
So normally the artery as your heart works harder or less, the artery should be elastic and rubbery so it can like expand and contract as needed. When it's so calcified, it can't move. And then as the opening gets smaller and smaller, the blood vessels can't pass through. And then the more difficult it is for the blood to pass through, then you can have heart attacks.
Yeah.
And you can damage.
I was just going to say, that's the people that we hear about that have the massive heart 3, attacks. 4, 5 things plugged up.
The widow maker. We talked about the widow maker. That's that main left artery on the heart. And then when that one is plugged up,
you're a goner, right? Quickly. So there's plenty to delve into, you guys. So as you can see, we're really excited to bring this new topic to you guys because there's so much in it to explore. It's just another thing to be thinking and growing about.
Absolutely.
And with that,
and on that note,
thank you in advance.
Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Yeah. was thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing